Well, today is the third and final week of our series Advance, where we've just been declaring 2022, we're coming for you. And we're going to take new ground in a new year. So if you've obviously missed any of those first two messages in the series, we talked about advancing with wisdom, we talked about advancing with work, and today we have our great friend, member of our teaching team, Rob Mason, who's going to be sharing about how we need to and can advance with friends. So, hey, listen to Rob, and as I said, go back and watch or listen to any of the first two episodes of this series as well. Let's take new ground in a new year.
Hi guys, it's good to be with you again, I think the second time for this year. And I want to tell you about a time, it was in the early 80s, and my dad accepted a call to be a pastor of a small conservative Church of Christ on the northern beaches of New South Wales, or in Sydney. And if you don't know the area that well, I was living in the Blue Mountains and my dad was a pastor there, and when I heard he had a call to go to the northern beaches of Sydney, I was absolutely thrilled. Anyhow, we arrived at this little church and most of the people were elderly and retired, very dedicated lifetime members. We had the organ and the piano accompanying very enthusiastic singing of hymns, and it was there, surprisingly, that I met a really good friend. We became lifelong friends. His name was Kevin, and obviously as an Aussie bloke, I called him Kev. We're both in our early 20s, and we realised right from the start, we've got a lot in common. We both enjoy surfing, we love music, we love rock and roll. He plays the bass guitar, I was learning electric guitar. We both like rugby league, we go for the same team. And so right from the start, there was enough chemistry going on, enough that we had in common. We just did a lot together. We travelled up north with surfing trips, we went to Christian concerts such as Larry Norman. We went to pubs and heard bands like Midnight Oil and The Angels. And then there were these moments, very spontaneous, where we would go to his place. He had this sort of granny flat where he had a music studio. He'd be playing his records, introduce me to bands like Kansas and Toto. And then we just started praying. And we would pray for half an hour or longer, and there were times at the end of the prayer, keeping in mind we're in this little conservative Church of Christ, but we're having this experience of the presence of God, and we would have this amazing time of prayer, and then at the end it was just this, whoa, that was amazing. And so this incredible friendship was birthed, and we went through a lot together, broken relationships, and with our girlfriends, we went and saw our favourite rugby league team, Manly, play Parramatta at the SCG in the grand final, and they lost. It was like, bad luck type of thing. But then, the heartbreak of being in this church with, wonderful people, but they didn't want to change. And so, we prayed for revival in our church, and we saw maybe some of it. But I just remember it was one of my most fruitful times in life where I began to grow in my faith, not because I'm disciplined and I'm having lots of time alone. I was advancing in life. I was advancing in my capacity, in my faith, because I was doing life with a friend. And I want you to, for a moment, just to think about having me, shared a little bit of this story with Kev. Have you got a friend or a couple of friends where you have done life with for some time, you've been through a lot, you're still friends, you're different, but you've got things in common? It could be your faith, it could be special interests, but this sense of life is so much better when we do it with friends. And so Mark launched this series called Advance, which is a great word because we're going through a time like most parts of the world of, we know the virus is coming, it is here, and everyone's on the defensive, it's survival. And I think it's great that we start the year by saying, let's advance. Let's believe God has more for us, that there's ground to take in relationships, in business and finances and so on. And so Mark talked about advance with wisdom, advance with work, and gleaning a lot of that insight from the book of Proverbs. In the book of Proverbs, wisdom is so much more than some impersonal sort of principles and formulas and to-do lists, do this, don't do this, do this, do this, don't do this. You'll notice when you read Proverbs, there's this unnamed woman called Wisdom, and she's speaking from the rooftops, she's speaking from the marketplace, she's speaking because she's had this download of wisdom. It's the wisdom of God speaking to people over centuries and thousands of years, and it's still relevant today. And so I'd like to say that as we get into this message today, that I'm going to refer to wisdom as Lady Wisdom. Eugene Peterson in the message talks about wisdom as Lady Wisdom. So let's start by asking the question, if we were to ask Lady Wisdom, what would be the first thing you say about Advance with Friends? What would be one of the first things you would say to us out of your journey with humanity for thousands and thousands of years? What would you say to us? And I'm sure before she says anything else, she would say, choose your friends wisely. And so let's open at Proverbs chapter 13, verse 20, reading from the New Living Translation. Walk with the wise and become wise. And then Proverbs often has this other side, associate with fools and get in trouble. It's almost like you have a choice. Walk with the wise, advance with the wise, you too will become wise or you'll get wiser. Associate with fools and you're going to get into a whole lot of trouble. Lady Wisdom would be saying to us, be friendly to all people. If you get on the bus, if you go to the gym, you go to the beach, you're hanging out with friends, maybe you're part of a group, even going to church, you've got a whole lot of people that you see. And Lady Wisdom would say, be friendly, be considerate, be genuine, be friendly. But when it comes to friends, choose your friends wisely, carefully. Choose your friends slowly. Take your time. Be discerning, be patient, be wise. When we think about our family, we didn't choose our family. I didn't choose Ken and Dow Mason to be my parents. My sisters didn't choose me to be the older brother. It was just, we were born into the Mason family. We are the Mason family. And we, for some 15, 20 years, did life together. We went on holidays together. We celebrated Christmas and birthdays together. And then we just did the month things together as the Masons. But when it comes to friends, we get to choose our friends. You could almost say that our friends become part of our personal development team. We're looking for friends who will help us advance in life, who will help us to grow and to mature. And it's two ways. We want to also contribute to our friends. So here are some of the questions I would be asking. I'm sure Lady Wisdom would say, here are some things you could ask yourself before pouring your life into a few people who become your friends. You want to ask questions like, is that person submitted to God? That they're not perfect, none of us are, but is there a sense of, that they're really pursuing God and the things of God? Are they others-centered? Is it a sort of friend that doesn't suffocate you? They're a friend who are always looking at other people, not wanting to be served, but always wanting to serve other people. Are they friends that are going to be generous and compassionate? Are they teachable, humble? Are they honest? Are they people you can trust? So Lady Wisdom would say, when you walk with the wise, over time, you become wise. You become wiser. You become the company you keep. Like begets like. Wisdom begets wisdom. So the sort of people we're wanting to choose to be our friends, the people that we're going to spend time with and we're going to pour our lives into, and they're going to pour their life into us. We want to have people who are wise, people who are mature. Here's something to ponder. Show me your friends and I will show you your future. Show me your friends, and I'll show what late 2022 could look like. Our friends play a significant role in how our life progresses, what the future looks like. Lady Wisdom is saying constantly and passionately, choose your friends wisely. Choose friends who believe the best in you, but also bring out the best in you. Choose friends who will be more than yes people. Choose friends who will challenge you and stretch you. I had a friend, and it was a few years ago, he knew I started cycling, and after about 6 months of cycling, and probably at this stage I'm going from City Beach where we're renting, and I'm riding to Burns Beach and back, and it was like that was sort of my limit. I'd sort of slowly progressed from going from 5 kilometres to 50 kilometres, and I'm getting a little faster and starting to bring a few hills into the equation. And my friend said, "Oh, Rob, why don't you do the Dams Challenge with me?" It was something that's on people's bucket list in Perth. There's a couple of choices. You can do like a 140 kilometre challenge, which involves 3 dams in the hills of Perth, or you can do a 200 kilometre challenge, which involves 5. And he said, look, maybe for you where you're at, 140 kilometres is going to be a stretch. And I remember, Daniel saying, I believe in you, and we'll do a little bit of training. And I remember the day before, or the night before, I suddenly had this awareness. It took me a while. I've never been up Green Mount Hill before. What if I get halfway up and I just can't do it, and I've got to walk my bike? And I've got to say, when the race began, or the challenge began, a lot of people, probably like myself, only been riding for a few months, haven't really done the training. Just the beginning of the race, going up Green Mount was enough. But my friend Daniel, he was riding slower than normal for my benefit. He was encouraging me, and then that sense of getting to the top of Green Mount, and then it's like, okay, Rob, that's good, but there's a long way to go. And it was just this long day of hills, and I've never experienced fatigue like it. But I thought, well, there's a good friend, someone who is willing to go on the journey with me to challenge and stretch me. We're looking for friends who aren't intimidated by our growth and our success. Walk with the wise and become wise. And then the second part of this verse, associate with fools and get in trouble. You see, in life there are 2 teachers, Lady Wisdom or consequences. We can either embrace and listen to the wisdom of this unnamed woman, of this woman of wisdom concerning friends, or we ignore her and think, I've got this, and we go on our own, we do our own thing. You choose your own friends who are immature, irresponsible, and there will be consequences. I'm not going to refer to these friends as foolish. I'm just going to say they're reckless. Reckless friends will steer us off course. And over time, if we're not careful, associating with such reckless friends, they're going to ruin our integrity. They're going to rob us of joy. In some situations, they may take away finances, relationships. Even our faith in God could be compromised because we're pouring our life into and allowing these reckless friends to pour their life into ours. Reckless friends are often immature, irresponsible, unreliable, and selfish. Think of a time you have been hurt by a friend that you thought was loyal, you thought were there for you, and yet they just, in a moment, turned. I had one such friend, and we went through a lot together, and they became very generous in my life. They began to be generous financially and in other areas, and I didn't know it at the time, but there was almost a sense of I was indebted. And then I had the audacity, according to them, to challenge them about an issue in their life. And it came, I believe, out of a humble heart, a concern, and it was a gentle challenge. I was stretching them, and they exploded. They just turned right against me. And not only that, they were part of our church. They wrote a letter to every member of the church and began to say to them, this is who you think Rob is, your pastor. Well, let me show another side. And it was manipulative, it was unethical and everything else. And so this friendship was lost. This friend was disloyal, but I realized at the beginning, I did have a couple of pastors say, Rob, this person was in our church and this is what happened. Rob, this person was in our church, this is what happened. I thought, yeah, but I'm different. I'll be different. And sure enough, I should have heeded their advice. But we all go through times like that. So if we're to ask Lady Wisdom, okay, so we're to choose our friends wisely. What sort of qualities do we look for in a friend? And if I go back and think about my friend Kev, you know that there are things we had in common. You might think of, I would look for someone with a positive attitude. You might think of someone with similar interests. Some people say, I always look for someone with a good sense of humour. I don't like friends who are too intense and opinionated, and others, if I have a friend, they've got to like dogs or they've got to like cats or whatever. Well, if I was to just focus on one quality in a friend that I look for, and there are so many qualities, and I'm just going to focus on one in this message, it would be loyalty. And the reason why I choose loyalty, there's a couple of reasons. Number one is because I know what it is to have friends who were disloyal, friends who very quickly can turn against you. I know the pain of having friends that people I thought were friends, but when there was a bit of pressure, when I might have challenged or something happened that may have been, a little bit of pressure came in, they changed and they became very toxic. But the other reason why I use the word loyalty and I look for loyalty is because I think we're living in a time where I just don't think loyalty matters a whole lot. You go back to your parents or your parents' parents, they were loyal to a particular bank. And so maybe they had their first mortgage, maybe it was a Commonwealth Bank, and they got to know the bank manager, and the bank manager looked after them. And then when you're a young adult and you get your first house, and it's like, we'll go to Bob, he'll look after you. But let's face it, we're in a time where loyalty doesn't mean a lot when it comes to banks. It's competitive, you don't even meet the manager, it's a lot more impersonal. And so now we have websites where, you put in what you're looking for and they'll bring in, a whole lot of different options. We have brokers. So the sense of loyalty to one bank, those days are gone. There was a time, perhaps before the 80s, in the area of sport, people were loyal to a particular team. And so you had a soccer player or a football player, they played for Liverpool, and they would never, even if they got a great offer from Manchester United, it was like, I'm not going over there. I am loyal to Liverpool. Or you've got a driver, he drives or she drives for Holden. I'm not going to drive for the opposition for Ford. But over time, money became the factor and sport became so professional, it's got nothing to do with loyalty. You go where the money is. So when it comes to friends, I'm not looking for people who are perfect, because I'm not perfect, but I am looking for a few men in my life especially, who I can do life with, and we can share things in common, but I am looking for loyalty. So now we go to Proverbs chapter 17, verse 17. A friend is always loyal, and a brother is born to help in time of need. A friend is always loyal, and a brother or sister is born to help in time of trouble. Now, other translations, paraphrases might say it a little different. New International Version, a friend loves at all times. Eugene Peterson in The Message, friends love through all kinds of weather. I like that. Through all kinds of weather. So friends are loyal in the sense of when it's springtime and we're going through life and we're advancing, we're taking ground, and Business is going well, family is going well, relationships is going well. You're connected to people in the local church is going well, and there's growth and there's breakthroughs, and it's like, yep, you're loyal, your friends are there for you. But then over a period of time, or maybe overnight, the season changes and the dark clouds come in, and you might go through an extended time of having a crisis in your faith. There may be chronic pain, there may be mental health issues, there may be things happening in your marriage or at work, or worse still, 3 or 4 of those things all happen at the same time. What we're looking for are friends who say, nothing's changed as far as our friendship. I'm with you, I believe in you. In fact, let's go and look what Eugene Peterson said. Friends love, or friends are loyal in all kinds of weather, especially when times get dark. In another translation, in the New King James Version, it says that this friend was born for adversity. They're born to help in a time of need. They're born, they're there for all types of weather. They're actually born for adversity. So as a friend, this is a person when things get really dark and you're going through a really difficult time, there's a sense of which when you're at your worst, they're at their best. When you're going through the worst of times, they're saying, I'm actually at my best. I've got this covered. I'm with you. I'm not going to rescue you. I'm not going to change the circumstances. I can't, but I can tell you what. I am going to stick with you. I'm going to walk behind you. I've got your back covered. And I'm not going to allow this dark time, and you might change, your mood might change. It's not going to change our friendship. Our friendship is going to get better. Loyal friends are at their best when we're at our very worst. I can remember a time when I felt like as a pastor, I'm going through a really dark time, the worst of times. And I had a friend who said this, a preacher friend. He said, Rob, if on a Saturday night you're in such a dark place, you don't think you can preach the next day, ring me and I'll preach for you. And then I said, whoa. If you wake up on a Sunday morning and you don't think you can preach, ring me. I will preach for you, and I'll get my youth pastor or my associate pastor to preach at our church. Now, I never had to make that phone call, but to have a friend say, Rob, I'm going to put your need, your church before mine. I thought, wow, there is a true friend. Loyalty. And loyalty cannot be proven over a week or over a month. There's a real beautiful connection between loyalty and longevity. A friend who says, I am with you for the long run. Jesus knows what it's like to have a group of friends that he spent a whole night praying about, choosing 12 men. He walked with them, they ate together, they did so much together. And during a time where Jesus, in his humanity, needed his friends, especially his 3 closest friends, Peter, James, and John, before his crucifixion, he said, guys, I'm really struggling now. I'm about to pray. Can you pray with me and pray for me? Jesus went a little further away from them, and after a period of time he came back and they were asleep. Hey guys, wake up. I need you. I need you to stay with me. I need you to be awake, not just physically awake. I need you to be spiritually awake. 3 times Jesus found them asleep. Heartbreaking. And yet even after that, and the time where Peter publicly denied loyalty and friendship with Jesus, sometime later, Jesus saw Peter and some of his mates gone back to fishing, probably believing I'm disqualified, and Jesus said, hey Peter, do you love me? Because in essence, Jesus is saying to Peter, I love you, man. Do you want back in? Because I want you back in the team. Jesus knows what it is to be loyal, to have a group of friends who at times weren't there for him. He forgave them, he entrusted them, and he took a risk. And so for some of us, and we're talking about friends that we have chosen prayerfully, it's not out of character, it's not like they continually let us down, but there will be times I have let my friends down. And my friends have let me down, but Lady Wisdom would say, forgive, take a risk, and advance in life